out the volume. Peanut. We're good to go. Well, it's been a long time coming. We finally were able to do this, and
I'm actually super stoked, to be honest with you.
We got it done.
Yeah, timing's everything, and I think that things happen for a reason when they're meant to happen. So,
well, so tell us the new escapade. We might as well dive straight into it.
The new escapade, the Clink,
Yes.
Plain and simple. Stories of redemption. So, what we're aiming for is to deliver a very impacting, moving journey through someone's life. Generally, it's either somebody of a high profile via their criminality, athleticism. Could be just Joan Smith walking down the road that, has really got a very impacting sort of start to their life that comes through, fights through adversity, tough times, traumas, finds light and comes out and is leading, their world from in front. Obviously, we're in a bright light. The guests that we've got on all have a story of redemption that is very inspiring, that hopefully we can give to other people to be inspired by and find a little self-belief in themselves that no matter how hard, how fucked up shit gets, that you can come through, and if you put your mind to it and, you believe in yourself and give yourself half a chance to breathe, there's something great out there for everyone.
Because the crazy shit is, I guess, obviously you've got a well-documented, we can go into it, upbringing, and
absolutely,
probably early life, would you call it? Young life. And then you got kids now, or young adults now,
I do.
that are literally, that are literally in what you're doing, what you were doing. So they're currently going through what you were doing. Not your kids, I mean.
I was going to say.
Not your kids.
I've tried not to let my kids go down that road.
You know what I mean? Like, if you think there's lots of kids and youths out there at the moment that are currently
it's full on
deep into what you were doing.
Yeah. And I think that people have this perception now that it's cool. I was only with some mates in Sydney the other week. We were chatting about this generation and the fact of how, for example, down there at the moment, people are getting shot and knocked left, right, and centre. Now, this is just talk of the town. There's very little money getting thrown around for someone to run around and pull a gun, and they're all young blokes that are doing it. Getting caught, not giving two fucks. It's cool to get caught. Cool to be looking at 5 to 10 years. It's a medal of honor.
Is it kudos? Is it?
It's happening down there.
So if you're seen to get in that industry, because I'm big time on the outside.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know nothing about that industry. I think that's why a lot of shows like your one and like the life you led are so appealing to people, is because they can't fathom it. They can't sit there and go.
The thing is, Jono, everybody's knows somebody that's done something, but have you done it? Have you lived it, or are you just talking about Barry's trip down to the fucking local drug dealer down the road, and he didn't like what he got, so he punched him in the head and he took his $20 stick off him, and next minute he ran away. What a fucking champion.
See, I don't even have that.
You know what I mean, mate?
At least they're not telling me that. Yeah.
The reality of it is it's not a life to be glorified by any means, and I want to make that very, very clear. Something that we truly emphasise through the Clink. The stories are hardcore stories that are embedded in history, especially with the people that are coming on. You're talking about murderers, bank robbers, underworld figures, people that have truly been there, done that. And I think we worked it out the other. It's like 170 years jail between us all. That, within 8 series. And I think 6 of those series are jail related. The others at the moment are professionals or athletes that have had a really tough journey that have got a story of redemption.
Because they're out there, aren't they? Like, that's just so many people are in that. But what people don't realise is they see the final product a lot of times, and that's like anything. They see the final product and think that it just came easy.
Well, it's a piece of toast. You put your butter on there, you make it nice on the edges, and then some people like their Vegemite to the edge, not too much, not too little.
Yeah.
This is raw. This is real, and you don't get any more factual than directly from the source. I'm a big believer in everyone, like I said, can tell a story, but how much of that story is true?
No GST.
How much is fabricated? You know what I mean? And I'm going to tell you a little bit more because I want you to get a wow factor out of it as opposed to Johnny down the road who I just told a little bit to and he went, oh, wow.
Yeah.
They'll
never compare.
No. So
you shouldn't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Mate, it's hard to hold back the truth on these ones because, the beauty about it is with the Clink, it's all truth. Nobody can pull apart any of it. It's all factual, evidential stories that, they have occurred. It is what it is. Now, people can take from it what they want. The whole point of it, once again, is not to glorify myself or any of these other guests or anybody that's coming on with some sort of past. It's about showing people that these people have had a very, very tough past that they were written off for. Society gave them a 0 minus fucking 50. You know what I mean? They just were never, ever going to be anything in their life. And here they are. One bloke's helped over 7,000 people through sexual abuse cases that, have had no voice. Started an organisation called Voice of a Survivor. You've got a journalist, award-winning journalist, who was one of Australia's most notorious escapees, bank robbers, and one of those violent humans of his era. You've got another bloke that, literally flew a chopper out of a secure prison. Rob Banks back right through the late 60s into the 70s. Mate, he stole the first decimal point dollar out of a bank teller via a gun. These are people that have these stories. I mean, another bloke, Wayne Cleveland, a big wave surfer that literally his world come undone. I mean, this guy used to walk through airports with kilos of coke strapped to him. And he, as he says, I'd go and punch a few cones in the car park, grab my In-N-Out burger, walk through LA with a big smile and be stoned out of my head, so relaxed and strapped with 2 kilos of coke every surf trip. To then sending over like planes, that have got coke just loaded through them. So these are undeniable.
And that's back in the day when the criminal was the criminal in the sense that you had to just have a set of balls. You couldn't do it from behind a computer. There's computer criminals now. They're just the smart, because, so much more. You look at, when I think of a criminal back then, like a drug smuggler, it's the bloke who puts his balls on the line and straps it to himself like that.
100%.
But nowadays it's more like send it out, figure out a way. There's no actual back. It's almost like you want to be inconspicuous.
Oh, inconspicuous. I mean, you talk about that yesterday. There's a 100 kilo, I think it was, boat off Newcastle, or $100 million worth of coke in a fucking fishing boat. Like just floating around off our shores, 30 Ks off Newcastle.
Yeah.
Poor blokes are come undone. The prices are going to go through the roof now. It's all come to a real quick end.
Bit of inflation.
Man, inflation, far out. I'd hate to be in the game these days. But I mean, that's the thing, and to get what you're trying to get in the end result, I just can't see the value in it. Like, I can't see the jail time in it anymore. I couldn't, the logistical effort you'd have to go through. I mean, I did 6 years for importation, so I totally get it. I understand logistics. I understand what it takes to get from A to B and how the process works, mate. It's one of the most stressful fucking things you'll ever do.
Oh, yeah.
And then, when you get that landing and you go, okay, we're on, it's a relief. And you think you're on top of the world, living like a king for however long it lasts, and then it's back to that original, anxiety, stress. No one can talk to you. You just, fuck that.
It's almost like training for a fight, isn't it?
Well, it is. And
you got this thing at the end, the baby at the end of the labour pains, and you're like,
that's right.
Fuck, I've just got to put up with this, that anxiety, of it coming up, or a big event.
I always love the anxiety in a lead up to a fight. For me,
well, compared to what you did have anxiety for, what's the worst going to happen? You're going to get
punched
knocked out,
in the head,
punched in the head, knocked out, not spend a whole long time in jail.
And that to me is the reality of it. I'm okay getting punched in the head. I wouldn't be okay. Been looking at 10 years today. It's not from saying that it's a weakness. If you're put in that situation, then fair enough, you're going to do it. But I'm choosing not to be in that situation to ever have to confront that situation again. Years ago, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I had no fear of it because, well, I guess I really didn't have a sense of value for myself. I have a purpose. I'm a father of 4. My oldest son successfully just pushed a 4-year uni degree for sound engineering into 2. He's excelling, high distinctions and absolutely kicking ass. My middle son, great Muay Thai fighter, surfer, and rugby league player. My youngest son thinks he's 20 and can do everything else.
Yeah.
And my daughter, who's vision impaired, 13, and she's got the voice of an angel, and she's at school in accredited classes due to her musical ability. So put the other side of it into it, it doesn't even come close to weighing up to the value of joy, the experiences of being there and seeing your children excel. And you're a father. Why the fuck does a kid want to go visit their parents every weekend and think, is this how my life's going to be? Like, it's not fair to them.
So when you got your sentence, your last one, because I know you were in and out as a young fella.
Yep.
But your last main one, obviously the one that you decided this was.
Yes.
How old were your kids at that stage?
So my oldest son, well, he was 10. 11. My daughter was 3, and my partner, my wife, was pregnant. She was 4 months pregnant with my second son.
Shit. So she had your son when you were in prison?
Yeah. So the first 4 years of his life, basically, I wasn't there.
How did that go?
Hard, especially now when he says, we're talking birthdays and stuff, and as a parent, it always comes out, I remember when you were a baby, and you were born and you come into the world, and I can't share that with him. I have to live with that through my choices, but he then has that burden of, but Dad, you weren't there for me. It does affect him. I see it in his eyes when the times come up and the conversations are spoken of. But
you can't hide it.
I can't hide it. And there's one thing with my children is they've always known, well, we obviously kept it at a minimal until they were old enough. But, when your kids are standing out the front of their primary school and they're watching their dad cycle past and waving goodbye to ride across Australia, they're going to know what you're doing it for. So at that stage, they started to realise about what mental health was, how Dad was and living with bipolar, and how I was up and down sometimes, or a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it all started to sort of fit into a puzzle. And then as they've gotten older, my oldest son's 21, daughter's 13, then 10, and then 6. They've seen documentaries. They use the internet now. I can't hide from any of it. Like there's interviews there, there's media snippets of, drug cases that I was, involved with, and it's there. So for me and for my wife, the best thing we can do is be honest. I don't want any curiosity or any questions of why did I lie? Why didn't I tell them? But my wrongs, I believe, are their rights, because there's very little curiosity. My boys ask about, gangs, and because they see a lot, and there's something about this SAE, these young street kids today. All SAE means is yes, just to get it clear. It was a language that we started when we were jumping bank counters at 14 and 15, based off pig Latin that no one could understand except us that were doing the crimes.
Yeah.
So it was our lingo on the streets. Now all of a sudden the word yes, SAE, is you're an SAE, you're a yes boy or a yes girl. I mean, fuck, I don't get it. Anyway, my kids are here and they're going, oh, Dad, is it like, were you like an SAE? And I'm like, no, and we're not going to have this conversation. What it was Dad committed crimes.
Yeah.
Dad went to jail. Dad was involved with gangs. Dad went to jail.
Did they visit you?
My oldest son didn't, and I had many, many, many years without him in my life because, okay now, but I wasn't okay at the time. His mum just took the opportunity and felt, right, this is the time to cut the old boy out of his life.
You can't do fuck all about it.
I couldn't do shit. I mean, I had phones smuggled in. I used to fucking sit there and, because obviously you get locked in at 3 o'clock. They're at school.
I don't know that, obviously.
So for those out there that aren't familiar with the lock-in times.
I'm not obvious on that. Okay. You could have told me anything then and I would have said, yeah, of course.
I'll just agree with it.
From when I was there.
back when you're up on the mountain in Auckland.
Yeah.
The thing is, your time just didn't fit into what opportunities you had to contact. When your child's going to primary school and stuff like that. So anyway, I literally had to get people to try and track down numbers, addresses. I managed to do all that. And then, I had to smuggle in a mobile phone. And that was my only way of trying to contact my son. I think it might have been twice in just over 4 years that we actually had spoken. And then when I got out, I spent, I've been home 5 years now, but I try to really make every effort. But he was upset, he was angry. He was...
Can understand, can't
He
you?
was pissed off that you left me. So me being home and all of a sudden wanting to repent and give him my story of redemption and go and say, look, Dad loves you. He didn't want to fucking know about it. It was just like, no, it's not happening. Yeah. Which I love him for today because we're very close again now. I got to hold him and hug him and tell him I love him on the 18th of July this year, my birthday. It was the first time in 4 years again, so there's been big gaps. We'd been talking since March, and it was the most powerful moment of my life, really, as a man, as a father.
I guess he's growing up a bit too.
He's 21, mate.
He can sort of see, he probably listens to things. I mean, I'm speaking from here, but, he probably sees things and thinks, people without a father, well, I've got one. He's fucked up, but how long am I going to, I think as the older you get, the more you start to look at forgiveness a little bit differently.
That word. So that's something that him and I have both touched on, is that word forgiveness. And, like even me, I've had to grow up and let go of a lot of things. I can't forgive a lot of the things that happened to me, like being sexually abused and raped as a child. I can't forgive for that, but I can move forward from it and accept it and move on. My son and I's relationship is a little bit different. He was never abused as a child. He never went through any of that. The worst thing he did was probably see me and his mum speak terrible to each other and me throw things around the house. So not acceptable. It's domestic violence, full stop. But I'm not trying to justify or compare, but if you were to say from mine and his point of view, completely different. Yeah. But rightfully so, there are things he doesn't forget either, that he needed to, I guess, forgive or move forward. And his words were, I feel so much better, Dad, that we've been able to have our conversations. Because I'm talking to a man. I'm not talking to my son as a young son. Hey, son, I'm talking, sure, mate, I'm Dad, you're Braden, and mate, I'm here to listen.
I guess obviously when you lost contact again, when he was younger, you're talking about a teenager. You remember when you were that age, who you'd listen to. You probably held grudges a lot longer.
Well, I was 12, 13. I was locked up. I was doing 2 years by the time I was 16.
So shit was real.
Living on the streets, I listened to fucking no one and did whatever the fuck I wanted. I didn't have parents. I didn't have family. So
if you had a glimmer of the way you were, you can get it. You could be like, well, fuck.
My scariest thing for me was thinking that because I hadn't spoken to my mother from her choices, I don't hold any guilt or anything. Mate, there's no skin off my nose, but been over 20 years. But in that time, when she left me as a child, as I grew up and through teenage years, the simplest way for me to move forward was just say, oh, no, my mum died of cancer. End of story.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, sorry. No, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm cool with it, yeah.
And that was it. I didn't have to sit back and say what happened, why she left, why she took my 3 siblings and left me, things like that. And so it became a way of life.
That's a coping mechanism.
It was a good way of dealing with it. And to this day, nothing's changed. She's alive, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
With Braden, on the other hand, I always feared that he had that in him because he's my genes to just cut me off and put that barrier up and say, oh, no, that's not my dad, because his mum and I have only had a partner each, in the 18 years we've been separated, 17 years. So, he hasn't had to bounce back and forth, see his mum with different men or his father have different women. It's never been like that. It was just instantly, fuck you, Dad, this is your doing. When I'm ready, you'll hear from me, sort of thing. And that's how it is now, but I wouldn't have said that, 6 months ago before we'd had the conversations.
I guess the difference between also your mother, and I don't know what her circumstances are, but you're actively trying to mend the bridge too, so you've got a feeling of love from the other side as well, so it's not like you're just sitting in the distance and, when he's ready, he'll come to me. It's like you're actively trying to
100%.
pursue him. So there's want there, so it's like...
I think for me, Jono, that mine with my own parents, my father and I are very, very close, but we took, the last probably 12 to 15 years of rebuilding our relationship. I'm 44. He's 70. He's sadly an ill man. So it was something that I consciously felt that needed to be dealt with. And, it was tough. But today I can honestly, look and say that if anything was to happen to my dad, it'd just shatter me. I love him dearly, and we have really built a beautiful friendship. On the other side, you talk about, your mum and your father. Well, my mother doesn't exist in my life, and that's as simple as that. And I don't, you get to a point where too much is gone.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking man with 4 children. You know what I mean? I've grown up without the loving mother. I've grown up without all the compassion and sharing and caring, and all that's fucking gone, mate. Whatever. I got my own children to worry about, and my heart belongs to them and my wife.
Do you know I feel sometimes as well when people are mistreated, like you were obviously, and not mistreated is the wrong word, but you can use, people use their parents for inspiration, and so your younger kids will be like, well, my dad rode across Australia, did all the things we can dive into later. There's a lot of inspiration too as well, but when they do bad things, like you displayed, we'll consider it a bad thing. Going to jail's a bad thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Towards a child,
totally.
They can use that as inspiration as well of how not to be. So they choose whether they, and same with your mother obviously leaving, you use that for inspiration of how not to be. And so I think if people have, things in their life that they can use for either ammunition or, demolition, they can ruin it. And
absolutely,
you choose how you want to harness that. And so that, I think that takes a lot of mental strength to be able to harness it for a good thing.
I think, Jono, one thing you got to realise too is it's taken me 35 years.
Yeah.
35 years of my 44 years to actually sit down and smile and feel good and go, I love me. I'm okay with me, and I feel good doing good. I feel good helping others. I feel good. I don't have any baggage anymore. I've got nothing. I've given it all back to the rightful owners, if I can put it that way. And, like I said in the beginning, my wrongs are my children's rights. That's my belief. That's my way of looking at things. By not hiding anything from them, they know the realities.
Yep.
It's a little bit of shock treatment, but I can guarantee you, it'll hit home knowing that you've actually gone, well, hang on a sec. You can't fool me. And no, it's not that way because I've been there and Dad knows. You know what I mean? And that's like, oh, shit. Like my 6-year-old at the moment he's the one that worries me. He's just my shadow, and it scares the shit out of me because he's just a staunch 6-year-old little fella that just wants to have it all, He can't swim in the ocean, but he paddles out on a surfboard and he'll paddle around and you get dunked and he'll pop up and dog paddle back to his board. He couldn't swim to save his life. If the currents were strong, it'd be terrible. But he refuses to sit on the beach and watch his brother and I out there. He wants in football, he won't sit on the sideline. Got in trouble. I had one of the footy matches 2 weeks ago, and he thought the game was over. So he's got his little uniform on, Currumbin Eagles uniform, and they just stopped playing. He's run out of the field, like one of them. He's like, oh, shit.
He's into it.
He is, and I love that. I love that drive in him. But out of my 4 children, he's the one that I'm going to have to really, I think, just try and mould. He's got too much curiosity of wanting to be bad.
You can see, and that's crazy that you can see that from where you're sitting, and you can see how parents wouldn't identify that.
Oh, absolutely.
And they can't, you look at it a different way. You can almost grab that and go, okay, now we could head there. We're not, I'm just going to slowly turn your little boat, and your boat's going to set off sail in a different direction, and the end result is going to be a far different location.
And that's the most beautiful way I've heard it put, because that is the reality right there. And if Soda and I don't, and we've talked about it. Obviously, we speak. We're a family that communicates, and I think that's the key subject is talk. I work away, so this is the other side of it. I then get that bit of a guilt feeling. My young fella finds it harder than my other children. I mean, obviously, my adult son, he's cool, but my 2 middlies, they're very resilient. Obviously, having lived with Dad being away in the beginning and that. But Tashan, he doesn't know that. Everything's just Dad's hip. He's just the absolute. I love him. Yeah. I love him. I love all my kids, but I love this little teddy bear because he's just rugged and rough. But I want him to be molded into, a really smart, well-mannered young man with plenty of drive and inspiration, but try not to want to be the bad guy, A
little piece of dynamite like that, put in the wrong hands.
It scares me. And
I think of parents that you see, these soft parents that just let their kids get away with fucking everything. It does my head in.
Oh, here, have a laptop, have a fucking... And even at home, I'm like, get the fuck off the computers. The sun is shining, guys. Get on your bikes, get on your skateboard, pick up the ball, kick the footy, jump on the trampoline. Let's go surfing. Whatever. Get the fuck out.
Yeah. But you think those parents who let them have whatever, do whatever they want, that kid's going to walk all over the parents.
Yeah. I'm not here to sort of. I mean, look, I started as anybody will say. I was a bad parent. Like what parent turn around and commits the crimes that I did, goes to jail, and like I'll cop that. I was a shit parent. I wasn't a present father.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough description of it because that's not a good thing for a parent to do, but I don't necessarily think it makes you a bad parent. What am I trying to say? So your decision caused, obviously, angst amongst your family, caused you to be away.
Absolutely.
So I guess that doesn't make that's a bad thing for a parent to do, but that doesn't make your intentions as a father.
My intentions, John, were always clear, and it was always right or wrong. I mean, I've got no trade. The streets were my trade. Yep. The gang life, the what I've been to jail for. The moving of drugs, importing drugs, robbing banks. That was my life. So when I had children, it was like I'm going to give them the world.
Yeah,
they're going to have everything they want. We're going to live a sick life because I never had any of that. I come from the streets. Yep. I literally had to fight to keep my shoes on my feet. So for me, I never wanted them. So my intentions, and I'm not trying to justify my actions, but my intentions were valid as a family man. My actions weren't.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And I think that ownership of that is very, very important. There's no skeletons in my closet. I'm not ashamed to stand up and say I fucked up.
Yeah,
but
I think gang people, I feel like, gang, that's the wrong way of terminalizing it. People that commit crimes, I feel like they think I'm a good person because my intentions are good. My intentions are to provide for my family. My intentions are, any way they know how, my intentions are to provide for my family. My intentions are to get money. My intentions are to create a good life. But someone suffers. So
Absolutely.
You see where you're headed. You see what, I'm not saying you, what I'm trying to say is you as a criminal or the person who's committing the crime sees that as, they see their intention. Their intention is to have everything. But someone suffers. And that's obviously what when going to jail and like you're on the flip side of when you've come out now, you're looking more like, well, I don't want people to suffer. I want to help people. And
look, I don't. And the reality of it is I've seen it at its worst. Like I'm not trying to sit here and pump up my tyres. I've seen it for my age. I've looked death in the eyes. I've seen people drop in my arms from heroin overdoses as a kid. Mate, I've seen horrific stuff, and there are things that could have been different had choices been made better. So then you take that into account. Well, how do you get to educate people before they make that choice is give them valid options to then think before they make that choice, as opposed to just, for me, it was just like, I didn't give a fuck. Bang, I'm on. Instant. I mean, I live with type 2 bipolar, so that hasn't helped. But everything I do is just bang. All right, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to ride across Australia. I'm going to jump that bank count.
I know blokes.
I'm going to have a big fat rack in front of me and get fucking right off my chops. Like, there's no in between for me. And that's not good. We really need to be... In
the wrong hands, it's not good.
It's not. It's great to have that drive because you get shit done.
Yeah.
But uncontrolled...
Have you always been like that?
I have always been like that, but medically and psychologically documented by forensics doctors.
This is the way I've often wondered about mental health.
Yeah.
Do you think that... So I don't know if you're on the nature versus nurture sort of thing. Like if you've got type 2 bipolar.
I do.
Did that start noticeably for you? What age did that start at?
So my traumas are massive for my mental health.
That's that's the avenue I'm going down.
Going through physically abused, sexually abused and raped, from the ages of 8 right through to 11. And, then obviously growing up without compassion, in a very violent upbringing, a lot of drug and alcohol abuse as I took to the streets. Nothing there was to complement a better mental health.
Yeah. Exactly.
Everything there was destined to be where it is today.
Yeah.
Had I not educated myself many years ago, I'll be straight up, I take CBD oil, I live on it. It's something that, I swear by, and I don't care. I'll take it till the cows come home every day. I don't take pharmaceuticals anymore. And if I'm stressed, I'd rather have a little bit of fucking tincture oil and get really stoned and chill out.
Yeah.
Because why? It allows me to breathe. It's natural. It's organic. I'm not filling my body with toxins that are actually going to destroy my mental health. I did all that. I was that guinea pig that they used to go, because it was only in the last 20 years that they've identified what bipolar is. You're either manic depressive, suicidal, ADD, ADHD. But now we've come out with, post-traumatic disorder.
Yep.
Anxiety is identified as an individual mental illness. There's so much education and value to what it is all about today. It's very hard not to identify what it is that you're living with if you do have these issues. For me, type 2 bipolar has been a massive education, because I was a part of that generation where no one knew what it was. It was all identified. Here, take a pill, you'll be right. You're just depressed. You're suicidal. Yeah, okay, we'll talk to someone. That's your life. So wrong.
Yeah.
So wrong. When I come out of jail, the one thing that I wanted to do was never to have to take a pharmaceutical tablet again to better my day.
Yeah.
So,
Were you medicated in prison?
Yeah, had to be.
Yeah, had to be. Okay.
Had to be, because I was just too erratic. I couldn't settle.
You strike me as a bloke that can't sit still.
I couldn't, you know what I mean?
And that's a strange dynamic.
And I don't have worms, and it's all. I'm 138 kilos. Most blokes would be happy to sit on their ass. So I can't.
That's a weird place to put someone who can't sit still into a prison, isn't it?
Mate, try doing 12 months Segro and knowing that you're lucky if you get out into a little yard where you've got 14 paces one side and 4 paces the other.
You did 12 months of that?
Absolutely.
Was that mandatory, or was that because
no
something
way.
happened inside?
Two things. I was gang affiliated.
Yep.
So, the other side was I didn't give a fuck, so I would rebel. People don't like that in jail. It upsets the apple cart. So when a bloke comes into the system or the wing and he's got a bad attitude, things are happening. Do you understand? Things are happening. There's a process. The screws, the inmates that have been there for a long time, they don't like uneasy. Some bloke coming in there loud and boisterous, carrying on, or telling the screws, go fuck yourself, or I'm not doing this, who are you? Ain't good.
Yeah.
And it's not that you ain't good, is it upsets the apple cart of routine. They don't want drama. They don't want stress in the wings. There's enough of that there under the carpet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, when I come in and I start pushing and shoving screws and attacking and verbally abusing and refusing to do things, they're not going to tolerate me in the wing. The inmates aren't going to be happy with me in the wing in the end, whether they know me or not, because it's fucking up everything that's going on in there, because it brings too much attention and heat. So, the only way they're going to deal with you, sweet, we'll lock you down.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean? They'll move you jail to jail. They'll just keep you locked down.
So what do you do? What do you do with your time?
Fucking read.
Just read and...
Try and read. Try and educate. You don't see anyone, and you're lucky if you get a phone call, and especially when they go on strike or they're short in the other parts of the jail, they strip the screws from that area. So you may see someone come in to throw your meal in, that's it. And you just don't know when you'll exactly... okay, let me rephrase that. They're supposed to have a time where you get a phone call in the day. You're locked in the cell. You get out, for 2 or 3 hours. And when I say out, you've got your cell, and then you've got a little cage off the back of your cell that you go into like an animal. And then you come in, they lock that door, and you're back in your cell. You don't physically see anyone except you got a little mirror that comes out the side, and same as the movies. You're looking down and talking to cellmates. Or we run lines. We strip sheets and we run lines. We put like water bottles on the end of it, and you flick it up the other end, and someone will be cooking up 5-6 cells up. That's if you all get on, like you'll take turns and having a cook up, and you try and make it as communal as you can, because you're all in there together. And yeah, there's some shit cunts that come in there, and there's some fucking people that you'd love to get a hold of. You just don't acknowledge them in there. I mean, they cop enough shit as it is, like sucko.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to just looking after each other, it's the boys. And you build relationships from that, because everybody's there and no one wants to really let their emotions be heard or seen. There were 2 blokes that took their lives, that literally while I was on the run, and it was hard because I didn't know them. But yet the detectives that come into each of the cells open up and they go, so so-and-so took his life last night. What did you hear? What do you know? How the fuck would I hear anything?
Yeah.
You're asking me what I hear. You know what? I can't hear a bloke that's hanging himself four cells down or 3 cells down because you completely isolate us. I can't help anybody. I can't help myself at the best of times now. How the fuck would I know?
Just trying to get through the day.
Yeah, exactly. So then you take that on board and you go, man, what did that bloke go through? Knowing that, was that the right choice when he did what he did? Was there a thought of, fuck, I really don't want to do this and I can't detach. You know, if you're in a wing, you're generally 2 out, or, you know, you can talk to other inmates through the wing. You hear things, you know, when you're in a wing, everything echoes. You got to tell cunts to shut up because you want to go to sleep. Like, it gets that bad.
Yeah.
When you're in Segro, you don't hear shit. Unless it's allowed, you know, and man, dark, sad times like that hit home because you start going, fuck, it affects everybody in that area.
I guess you're thinking, was he thinking what I'm thinking at the moment? And this is what I've got to look forward to.
But this is the thing, is this my only out?
It seems like I understand criminals and I understand punishment. But in an area like that, I feel like we're going to look at that in 50 years' time, 60 years' time, and go and look at that as like a concentration camp style, you know, with disgust like we did at the concentration camps, because of, especially when it comes to mental health. So any crime or any punishment that someone with mental health receives now, I think in years to come, we're going to look at that like we treated them really poorly, almost like burning witches, because it seems like you can't. It seems like that's just our best option, and it's an antiquated option that we've used for hundreds of years. Is just lock them up. But something's not right there.
You've got a very valid point there, and it's funny. You know, 2 of my guests that I recorded over the weekend, John Killick and Bernie Matthews, the hairs on my arms are standing up at the moment just mentioning their names. What those men who were both, you know, early to mid-70s, how they're even still here, I don't know. Their stories, you know, I've seen it hardened. I know how tough it can get. It's nothing. Yeah. What I've seen that I thought was tough and hard and suffering and pain, fuck, bro. When the way the system is today, they've got a duty of care. You know, okay, we say we don't get a phone call. We didn't get to watch a TV because they didn't put one in our cell. Oh, my meal was cold. You know, like, oh, they locked us down for 2 days. Like, these blokes were locked in what they called black cells for 14 to 16 days straight. They had no light. Yeah. There was nothing in there but a concrete slab and a tin. One of my guests talks about a button become his best friend, because what he'd do is he'd flick the button up and he'd spend the rest of the day on his hands and knees looking for this button. This is shit you see in movies, but this is fact. There's been royal commissions into the treatment of inmates, both male and female, in institutions over the last, where are we? So let's take it back to late 60s, right up to the early 90s. They had shut jails down because of the ill treatment of prisoners. You're talking about beatings beyond anything you and I had ever seen. These men were handed porridge with maggots in it and made to eat it. Otherwise, they'd be flogged. Both of these men have come out and said in their interviews they would come out of their cells daily waiting to just be knocked out. They were almost begging that the first hit with the baton would be in the head and they'd be knocked out. So they didn't have to feel the rest of the beating. And this went on for fucking years. You know, and the people that were there with them became... They're called intractables. And there was between 16 and 20 of them in total. There's books written about it. These men were products of their environment. They were predominantly sexually abused through all the boys' homes with the inquiries at Tamworth, Mount Penang, or the juvenile detention centres. All abused. They then go to jail. They just rebel. They become notorious escapees that can't be held down. They become extremely violent that are just instantly stabbing other inmates, attacking officers. You could not settle them down. Why? But and what I'm doing is think about where their lives have started as young people. Now, you're talking about these men being incarcerated for truaning, running away from home, stealing a push bike, to then becoming Russell Street bombers, notorious serial killers, rapists and murderers, bank robbers, habitual bank robbers, and violent offenders. What are you going to get out of flogging and destroying a human in an institutional environment where they're already deprived of everything? And I get it. You fucking do the crime, you do the time. But there's a rehabilitation factor to it. You do not get rehabilitated by being abused or physically stripped and beaten. It doesn't make sense. You hit a dog will generally start to cower. But I guarantee you, sooner or later, that dog's sitting there thinking, I'm going to rip your fucking arm off if you do that again. And bang, that dog will one day bite you.
Yeah.
Why?
And the dog gets put down.
Exactly. So what's the difference between a human that's incarcerated? Yes, okay, he's in a maximum security environment. He's on a strict program, but has to be beaten almost to his death every day. I know the one thing I'd be thinking about is I'd be hunting you and your fucking family for every day of my life that I get out, and I would make sure I take the whole lot of yous out there in the most powerful way I could to destroy you.
Yeah.
That sounds sickening, but that's the mind of somebody that would have had to have gone through what they went through. So, you know, today we jump forward and we talk about the rehabilitation of inmates and people like myself who have had to go. A lot of it comes down to self-choice. Systems are very different today because they have a duty of care. We are aware there's cameras everywhere. Don't get me wrong, shit's still happening. Absolutely, there's things happening.
There's a way around every system, isn't there?
Well, whether you're right or wrong, like I said to one of my guests, I said, so these screws or officers are daily beating. And he said, Brent, the one thing I couldn't understand, he goes, they'd flog us, we'd come to, and you'd hear them talking outside our cell doors about how the young fellas going to footy and their daughter's doing really well at school. Like, it was nothing. It was just part of the job. Now, you can't tell me that your mindset, if you're that screw or officer, is not twisted.
Yeah.
You're beating an inmate that you're saying is not okay in the head to start with. How sick a fucking human have you got to be to sit there on a daily basis and beat somebody to absolute unconscious near death, black and blue, dripping with blood everywhere, and laugh about it, chuck them back in the cell, move on to the next one? Who's the criminal?
Yeah. It's the generational thing as well, I guess, when like back, if you go down 1800s, you know, that probably happened more so, even worse.
It's only
gotten
100%.
better. It's only gotten better, really, hasn't it? Like when it comes to the abuse, purely because there's voices, people speaking up about it.
Exactly.
But if you're grandfathered into that, like say if I was a 60-year-old man who was a prison guard, that means I conceivably could have started when I was early 20s.
That's
almost
right.
40 years ago.
Yep.
Almost 40 years ago is 70s.
Yeah.
Over that. Jeez, my maths. I'm doing good.
Yeah, I'm
maths
44, Dad's 70, so.
There you go. So 70. Here we go. Look at me go. Okay, I'm still doing this. Carry the two. So you're talking about that. So in the 70s, guards were beating the piss out of people all the time.
Right through the 80s and into the early 90s.
The guy you're talking about, exactly. So conceivably, that I would have started at that point. Yeah. So why would my mentality have changed, or what would have caused it to change? And if you're grandfathering in that, every new guard comes in, you're like, well, this is how we do shit here.
Yep.
And then I'll bring up a point like Nazis. When you look at Nazis, and this is probably a bad comparison, but this is what I've read about recently. A lot of the Nazis weren't actually bad people.
No,
they weren't. They were just
following orders.
They were following orders, and they were almost like, you can't tell me there was 1 million, 2 million guards out there that wanted to kill Jews all the time. What they were was grandfathered into it, and they were like, this is how we do it. And it became, they would push back, and then it just became, this is what we do. So it just became acceptable. And if you're introducing new guards all the time to the system, and then the old guys, like, they might go through an induction and say, oh, this is how we treat a prisoner. We turn around, we don't do this, we don't do that. Remember, we don't touch a prisoner. And then you get 2 months, 3 months into your job, and the guy goes, mate, that's a fucking waste of time. This is how we do it here.
It's funny you bring up that whole Nazi thing, and like I agree. It could be a sensitive point. So for anybody out there, it's not something that we're trying to glorify here. But there was a ruling, I believe, that one of my guests, I think it might have been Bernie Matthews, used in reference to how it went down in the crimes commissions about the ill treatment of these inmates. One of the officers pled a law or something that was used back then of I wish I could remember exactly word for word. What it is it basically takes ownership away from your actions because you were told to do it and you're only doing your job. So in other words, it eliminates any conscious acceptance of knowing that you sent people to death all you're saying is, I was ordered to do this.
It's a cop-out.
I was just doing my job. And apparently that was a part of, somebody got off when they did the war crime inquiries and put people away for the terrible atrocities. That was a very valid fucking thing that kept coming up. And then there was an officer that was able to walk away from it because of it.
There's just no responsibility for it, is there?
Well, chain of command is something that, has been emphasised into today's world. You know that as a tradesman. I know that as an interstate truck driver. You have a responsibility from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
Each of us has to take responsibility. There's no more. And this is why, in the broader spectrum of the world, this is why they implement this particular practice now, is that everybody's then responsible. So if you're flogging, and look, the squad, as it's known, mate, if you're going to fucking carry on, you're going to get flogged. It's just simple. They're not nice. They're assholes, but it is. There is a chain of command, and what they look at now, that is, if there was just an average screw over there beating on an inmate, then it's up to his buddy to actually now realise that if anybody else seen that and you seen that and you didn't act and you didn't tell the higher authority that bloke was beaten unfairly on an inmate, then it's going to come down the line and you're going with him, which then puts them into a position, well, shit, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to look up. So then you get your fucking dogs and snitches and that's the terminology for it. But on the other side of it, is he going to do the right thing by that bloke humanely, saying, man, he doesn't need to be getting flogged like that or beaten. I need to stop it.
Yeah.
It's a fine line, isn't it? Right? Nobody wants to be the snitch.
It's scary to think.
And I can tell you on my side of the fence, you just don't be a snitch.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, well, you look at that. All the George Floyd stuff. The guy that was killed in the States. The guy who was actually kneeling on him, and I don't want to go too deep into it. Yeah. But the guy who was kneeling on him, the three others are in as just much trouble as he is.
Well, they brought in a law many years ago. So when we were younger and we were jumping bank counters, say for example, hypothetically, I'll talk about one that was charged, okay? Because I was convicted of it, what I mean? It's public knowledge. Yeah. So we'd pull up in a stolen car, middle of the city. There'd be a driver and there'd be three passengers. High-performance vehicle. Three of us would jump out, bang, run straight in. And this is before they had shutters and shit, so we'd launch straight over the counters, clean out the drawers, and if we could hit the safe, we'd hit the safe. 90% of the time we weren't even armed. It was literally a standover.
Yep.
But we were young cunts with balls, and we got what we wanted. You're out, you're cashed.
Yep.
Back then, if you got pinched and you're only the driver, well, you'd only get done for the stolen car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you were the cocky out there, keeping eyes, you wouldn't get done as the same as the blokes who ran in and jumped the counter. Today, it's comes under, I believe it's group enterprise.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're at home on a mobile phone, ringing the bloke in the car, telling him, listen, I just seen on the news there's a chopper over the head and you got Dave and Johnny into the bank and they're ready to hold it up and it's all happening. And say there's a gun that goes off. Unfortunately, somebody's shot. They pass away. It's a murder blue. Armed robbery and murder. It's the lot. You're looking at fucking 20 years plus. Yeah. Old mate that made the phone call, the Davo in the car that's keeping cocky about what he just heard on the news chopper.
Yeah.
You're all going down.
Fuck. Scary, isn't it?
Well, it is.
Well, not for me, because I'm not making phone calls to nobody.
No, well, neither am I. I mean, it doesn't affect me either. But for those that are out there that are considering, and I'm not talking about banks have got no money in them anymore, but if you're considering, committing crimes, like I guess it's like this gang mentality, this street gang mentality where they're piss weak, 90% of them, they won't have a crack one-on-one. It's like there's one or two blokes and 10 of them will jump and next minute they're pulling knives out, and unfortunately a lot of youth are using knives today and they're not thinking about the content. I personally pull a gun on me. I'll keep walking forward. I've done it many a time. I don't fear a gun. I'd be more concerned about someone pulling a knife on me, because the bottom line is if I've got a loaded gun, and you do, I'll tell you do think, if I pull this trigger, it's just, you're dead.
Yeah.
Gun, bullet, mind, death.
Yeah.
If I've got a blade, I'm not thinking about killing you, but you've got a real big chance of that blade causing death.
It doesn't feel as serious. Is that what you mean? Like,
well, that's right. Psychologically, you just stab. But if you get someone, all right, obviously you've got to just look at someone's hand. You'll know if they know what they're doing with the knife the moment they're holding it, right?
Yeah.
But we're not going to say that over here because I like to keep that one up my sleeve.
I wouldn't. But
But you know what I mean? The average person would look to disarm someone if they had that confidence in them. First thing you'd look at is the position of the person and how they're holding the knife. You know what I mean? You'll know whether they're serious or not. But if you get someone that's hesitant and especially with the drugs and the way that the world is today, twitchy, you don't know that person at any spare second is just going to leap forward and bang, hit you in the throat, hit you in the chest, and accidentally kill you. I'm sure they don't intentionally think they're going to kill you, as opposed to someone that's pulling a gun on you.
because I guess carrying a gun's a real serious thing to do. Like if you're carrying a gun, you've got intentions.
Mate, I always said if you're going to carry a gun, make sure you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Like I just don't see the point in walking around with a gun if you're not willing to use it.
Well, that's like the police in New Zealand don't carry guns.
Which I think's fantastic.
And it's broadly because, as far as I understand, it's broadly because if there's a kerfuffle or a scuffle or a fight or something breaks out, you have to stop that fight. You have to be mindful of the fact that you're carrying a weapon. You can't just jump in there and break it up or jump in there and manhandle someone and pull them down. You got to almost stop things with your gun. That becomes your way of stopping a problem.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, then you're in, you know. I mean, they do carry them in the cars and things.
Oh, yeah, and I mean,
not-
they have a special team that turn up with them too.
yeah.
I've seen the size of the guns that they got over there.
yeah.
They're good.
No nonsense, but yeah.
But I get that, and I think it takes a little bit of that ego and power trip away too from the law enforcers. You know, like, okay, use a taser. Taser, I don't know the stats, but I'm pretty sure that there's more people alive that have been tasered than not.
Yeah.
How many people are alive that have been shot? These days, they don't go for your leg.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day when you're running away, they'll shoot you in the back of the leg or to you know, disembark you on your journey to where you're going. You're not going to keep going. Today, it'll be just like a draw and shoot, and they're trained to just shoot in vital areas. Then they worry about it later. You know, I don't think that's good for anyone. I really don't. You know, and New Zealand are setting the bar in a lot of ways, and I think, you know, even in that way, the way that they're dealing, and no one can take away how bad New Zealand can be. It's a beautiful place. My wife's a Kiwi, and you know, I understand, and I get. I have many mates over there too. You yourself, you know it. You've lived it. You've been there. Man, it can get hectic, and I believe a little bit dangerous than here.
Yeah, it's. I don't quite know how to. Yeah, there's dangerous parts. Yeah,
Like I just,
I
think,
don't have a firm grasp on the reason, but there's certainly. Okay, put it this way: when I moved here, there's areas where I'm from in Hawke's Bay that you were pretty much told you didn't want to break down in there.
Yeah.
In that area.
Yeah.
When I first came here, I was working for a bloke in Currumbin. He goes, "I'll take you through the dodgy area." He took me through this small area in Palm Beach in the street.
Oh, Palmy.
I was like, "This is lovely."
I was about to say.
This is beautiful. He goes, "Oh, it's pretty dodgy, this area."
Oh,
He goes, and I
right.
was like, this was, I mean, I'm talking 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah, but even then it wasn't bad. Like that was when we had the methadone clinic on the Gold Coast Highway.
that's
The
probably
strippers
why.
used to be up and down the highway. Like you could stop and pick a hooker up.
But that's why I was like, well, this is an incredible place. It's beautiful here.
Life's
I was like,
good.
mate, I can take you to a place where you don't want to break down. And I mean, a lot of that's probably, what's the word? A lot of it's probably beefed up more than it has to be, but there's some bad areas. And a lot of that's the low socioeconomic areas.
Absolutely.
Where crime is not, it's just a form of survival.
Well, the gang mentality over there is different too.
Yeah.
They live it and breathe it.
Yeah.
It's not like here you pull up on a Friday night, throw your colours on, go for a ride, do a few skids and get really fucking off your tits and go home Sunday.
Yeah.
And woo, we had a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Over there, it's 24/7.
Oh, it's,
You know, and
yeah.
trouble gums, like you want trouble, trouble's there.
You can find it.
Without
So
a doubt,
fast,
you
yeah.
know, and I think that it's a different mentality, you know. But what my point was how New Zealand deal with that, you know, the law, the government, because that would be a lot more in your face, I think, than what we've got going on here. As hard as Australia,
A lot of the cultures
can be,
a lot of the gang stuff's wrapped up in culture.
which is what we're seeing a lot of now in Australia. It's hit here.
Yeah.
You're seeing, you know, like there's always been
Which
you know,
culture's that? Which culture's that? That it's,
I think it's more, you know, that Polynesian culture at the moment, this drilling or whatever they call it, you know, this rap gang sort of, like, it doesn't matter where you look.
That's moved from there.
That's my
That's the
point,
thing,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and it's all over here, G, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And we've always had, there's always been, Aboriginals, Islanders, Asians. Go to jail, mate. There's segregated yards in some jails, the Aussie Islander yard. Asians, Lebanese. Like, it's just the way it is. But I think it's gotten a lot worse today. And predominantly, adopting that attitude from over there, bringing it here. The States, even England, I believe at the moment, has got, with their ethnic groups over there and stuff, quite a heavy drilling or multiple gang. I don't understand it. I don't, because I get it. I have been in gangs. I understand it. But you had to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
You had to be a man before you came in, not just fucking, we're 10 out, we're going to fuck you up.
So I'm not, obviously, my information on gangs is very low.
Yeah.
As an outsider, very much outsider looking in, I always attributed it to the feeling of family that you never had.
Absolutely. Back when I was coming through, for me personally, and for a lot of good men that I knew and still do, it was about brotherhood. It was about family. It was about giving a damn about each other, and you loved your brother. It's what it became, a love for each other, and nothing was a problem. And you would go to the death for each other, without a doubt. Take that out of context, and you've got what's going on now. You can't go into areas without getting stabbed or shot at, and
So for you,
I just don't get it.
When you decided to get out, I don't know how deep you want to go into it. You're welcome to go either way. But when you decided that it wasn't for you anymore, that gang life, was that because you found more comfort in your family than so if you're still a single man,
I'd be still in the gangs.
You'd probably still be in the gangs because you couldn't see
It's just, look, I don't think that my gift in life is my wife. Because, man, she's a strong, strong woman who stood by me through thick and thin, and she taught me to love.
She must be a champion. Cause
she's a Kiwi. Fuck off.
You're a smart man.
Mate, I tell you, I wouldn't have. Yeah, I'm blessed, truly blessed. And her, and her family structure and morals and that are something that I've taken on.
Yeah.
I had to learn to love, and I mean truly love, and love myself. I had to learn to be a father. Because I wasn't a father. I didn't know how to be a father. I had no guidance in that respect. So, funny enough, here's this woman that comes into my life, totally different. Man, I remember her telling me one time when we first started hanging out, and I'm thinking, fuck, she's a bit out of my league, but I was persistent, I thought, man, she's beautiful. And we went out on a date, and she says, oh, look, it's just not going to work. We're too different. My family, my big brother said, I can't sort of be seen. You're a bikie, you're this or that. I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, that hurt. So all of a sudden I started to feel this heart little string get pulled, and I was like, oh, that hurt.
Yeah.
I
uncomfortable.
Yeah. I never cared before that, and I know that sounds terrible because I was a father by then, and I'd been in a long-term relationship with my son's mum for 10 years. So, what... It hurt. I was like, I like that feeling of feeling human. I want to know more. Anyway, a few more visits later, and next minute I'm on the back of the bike, and I'm going down to meet the family, and here I am getting off the bike in a full set of colours, and the Harley pulls up in the driveway, and the old man comes out, and they're quite a spiritual family, very, 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 very well connected, like spiritually connected, lovely, lovely people. They're originally from Pihar, an old hippie sort of style.
Yeah.
The old boy comes out, short in stature, but big in presence. And I get off the bike, and he's, walked up, and I put my hand out. I said, g'day, mate. And he goes, g'day, big fella. And he put his arms out, and he gave me a hug and goes, you're welcome in my home.
Shit.
And I went, fuck. Oh. Really? Did this just happen, know? And from that moment on, to this day, I'd call my in-laws mum and dad because I just love them. They're the best. And never once have they judged me. I mean, the poor things... I went and visited them at their house a couple of days before I got arrested, and they had me under watch for 4 days, the federal police. So when they raided, they hit my home, my in-laws' home, which lived on a property south of the border. They just pumped everywhere thinking that they got the big one. And that's probably one of my toughest regrets. I was in Sydney. I was like, arrested. And they're going, do you want to go back to the federal police station to make a statement? I said, no, fuck yourselves. I'm saying nothing.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So off to Macquarie Fields Police Station in the middle of the Housing Commission. They threw me in this dingy little cell, and that was where I sat. I said, well, Chief, I want a phone call. He said, who do you want to ring? I said, Miss Solicitor. He goes, nah, conflict of interest. You can't ring him, because they tried to say that my then solicitor had knowledge or involvement about whatever I was doing, right? Because I'd had the same solicitor forever. He had no knowledge, knew nothing. He just was acting for me when needed to be. But they tried to stop that.
Very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. I said, look, I need to ring my wife. She's pregnant. What's her number? Anyway, I didn't know. And I'm thinking, I'll just need to ring her. She'll get me a solicitor, her family.
Yep.
Mate, the feds were all over there. They've got her parents in there, and they've got her. She's like popped out. Like the most probably traumatic thing for them to have to experience off my doing,
Yeah.
There was nothing found, nothing. And to be honest, I reckon they probably did it just to stick fucking listening devices through the house, to try and build their case even further. Whatever. But I still put them through that.
Yeah.
And 16 years later, there's nothing but love there, and treat me like a son. And, so when you ask the question about, would I still be having this in front of me, why would I want to continue that life when I have everything now that I've always wanted? I never had that growing up. I always wanted to be loved, but I become a hardened motherfucker because of that reason, that I was neglected.
Through necessity.
Absolutely. It became my defense in life. So all of a sudden, I started to realise that underneath the colours that I was wearing back then, the hardness, the thick skin, was just this scared little boy who just wanted to be loved and cared for. And funny enough, I'm a man, mate. I'll sit here and that's how it was. I'm not ashamed to say it. It was brought out. My wife today brought that out of me. A lot of hard work, a lot of years, and man, how she's still fucking beside me. I don't know. That woman, she's been through the best of me and the worst of me, and God love her, she's still there now. So it's her birthday tomorrow, so if this goes out on the 20th, happy birthday, love.
He told me what he's getting you. Wow.
Boom. So, look, and not only that, I seen times change. Like, I made a decision to step away from club life before I went to jail. There were things that were changing. I'm an old school bloke. I'm young when you compare to the old school knockabouts. I was raised by all the old gangsters.
Yep.
So I've been living the life since I was a kid. I was a street kid. The way that I looked at things, the mentality I had was of that nature. So I expected it to continue that way, and it's not today at all, and has changed massively.
Is that why a lot of guys get out?
Absolutely. Look, I'll put it to you straight. I loved my club. I loved my brothers, and I still do love many of them today. There's blokes that I'll still talk to, coffee, whatever. They're good men, and forever there's something that we'll all share, take to the grave. It's just what it is. I don't understand today's style of, gangster or street gang. And I don't want to identify because, I'm not here to bag anyone. I'm just saying I don't get it. From how I was raised and brought into that lifestyle to how it is today. There was always a chain of command. There was always structure. There were rules. Things you did, you got fucking punished for. If you fucked up, you knew you fucked up.
Was it run like an army almost? Do you see the ranks? Definitely some outfits were a lot more stricter in that respect. But definitely, there had to be structure, without going into too much detail, and it's just something that I choose not to disclose. That's me. But, people can read about it, and that there's a structure, a line of command, an authority, purse. You have to answer to somebody, or you did. And, if you're lucky enough to work your way through, I was, able to get to quite a high ranking. And, you've got to remain still true to yourself and your brothers. You can't go thinking that, okay, because I'm here now that I'm fucking king shit, because you'll just get taken clean out. Yeah.
You don't last. It's as simple as that.
So when you accepted the fact that this wasn't for you anymore, how does that go?
Hard, lonely. Look, I think I was blessed with the path that I've walked and the honour that and respect I'd shown. I never did wrong by anybody. I never turned my back on any of the brothers. I never disrespected the outfit.
Yep.
I think there's a few times there where there's been up-and-comers that have heard of who I am and maybe stories and thought, oh, yeah, fuck, he's a trophy.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And look, mate, I could walk out of here and get shot. That's just the way it is. I've got a past. I don't hide from it. And as I said, I've never told anyone. Don't have any skeletons. I don't fear any retribution because of me doing wrong or saying things that I shouldn't have said. That's not me as a human.
Mm.
But there's always someone there that may dislike the fact that others respect you still, and they want to make a little name for themselves. You know what I mean? So,
well, that you can probably identify with that because you were a young brash man. You know that. You know what I mean? You.
Very different, but back then, mate, you wouldn't be game enough to.
Yeah.
If that person had a little bit of clout and a little bit of form, and as long as that person hasn't done wrong by you or the outfit that you run with, let it be.
Yeah.
Because like I'm a humble man today, and I'm a father and everything, but I guarantee you come at me, you want to kill me, because if you don't, I'm going to come back and take you out. It's as simple as that. I don't give a fuck. That's the life I've lived. That'll never change.
Yeah.
I refuse to let that change. I will protect myself to the death, and my family and my loved ones.
Mm.
So, I'm not here, and I won't disrespect anybody. I'm not going to put anybody down. I'm not going to belittle anyone or talk out of school. Just go about your business, man, because I'm just doing my thing.
I think that's one thing that you've always authentically come across as. Like, you're very open about your past, but that's where it sort of begins and ends.
Yeah.
You're open without being, what's the word? Like, you're open without sort of spilling it all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? 'Cause you can't.
there's things there that you just
Let it be.
people sell out. People sell out telling their story. I've got a story that can be spoken of without incriminating anyone, myself, or bringing any disrespect. Like I to this day, if you know my path and you know the club that I've been with, if you know that, then that's good. I'm not going to sit here and glorify it and big note it and tell everybody, oh, I was this member of this club doing this and that. We know, I know.
Yeah.
That's all that needs to be said. You know what I mean? There's no disrespect. There's no gain.
So if yours, controversial question for you. Your young son,
Yes.
the dynamite kid.
Yeah.
If he came to you and said, Dad, I think I'm going to be part of a gang,
Very good question.
what would you say to him? Remembering, let me put this into context as well. Remembering, he's 18, 20, big fella, bigger than you now.
And the thing is, whatever I'm going to say, he's still going to do what he wants to do.
Yeah. Obviously,
Jono,
you want to make him grow up so he never has to have that option.
That is my goal in my life
Yeah.
for my children, my 3 boys, is to make sure that they are educated, they are articulate, they are respectful, they are able to work hard and know the morals and ethics that we should abide by in life, that I was never guided. I never got given those tools. So for me, I had to find my own tools, and I'm forever grateful because I'm still here talking to you right now through oh, mate, fuck, how I'm still alive. And then I'm not saying alive because I've done wrong by people, but just where I've been, things that I've been involved in. Shit's gone south many a times, and I'm carrying a few scars and fucking holes in my body because of it. But that's the life I chose to live. If I could prevent my own children from ever having to go down that path, from having these type of conversations, just proper table talk, real talk, great. If my youngest fella came to me and said, Dad, oh man, fuck, I you know what? I don't think I could honestly answer it because my heart right here sits there and says, no fucking way. I just wouldn't have it, wouldn't tolerate it. No.
You do everything you needed to do for that.
I would, but then do you push your son away because of those actions? And does he look bad in front of his crew and his buddies? Because obviously he's down with who he's going and run with. They already know each other.
Yeah.
There's already history there. So what have they done? What have they been up to? You know what I mean? Like, these are the thoughts that most parents probably don't look at. They just think, oh, yeah, you've just met these guys. No, there's obviously a connection there. If your son's telling you that they're going to go forward and patch into somewhere, or they're right down with this clique, there's history.
Yeah.
You
This
know?
didn't just happen.
They've done shit. So how far is he in, for starters?
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly couldn't answer it. I mean, look, we say even, and I don't want to. Please don't take this out of context. But you know, your son comes home and says, "Dad, I'm gay." Do you love your son or turn him away? You love your son.
You love son. Yes, spot on.
You know, you don't sit there and go, "Well, you're gay. You're no longer my son." You embrace it. You understand it. You try to educate yourself, and you realise that this is who your son is. So how do you love your son being a happy person in here? And that's all we want for our kids, to be happy.
It's just more. It'd be more along the lines of, "Hey, I still love you. You know, I'm not pumped on you doing this."
Man,
because and then also, I don't want to throw this. I'm not trying to throw this. In
I
your face
can't
here,
answer it honestly.
Because he could say to you, "Well, fuck, you got to do it," and then you're like,
"Hands down, mate. This is the facts."
I fucking did too. You know, you can't. You almost can't be a hypocrite.
These are the facts. You know. So do you let them run their race and make the mistakes? And then, you know, what's to say that it doesn't get that bad, or, you know, he doesn't establish himself enough that if he needs to pull out and still be held respectful and honourable, that it's not retaliation after that? Do I lose a son to some young punk that wants to come up and stab him on the street because he's no longer with the crew? Man, I don't know.
It's a brutal question you probably never thought about. But
it's not. And I truly pray to God that I'm not put in that position. Yeah. If it came to it, I would arm up and walk straight in their crew and clubhouse and probably just go, "Listen, we're here. He's done.
Yeah,
he's done. If you want to take it out and you want to go on with it, we go on with it. If not, please go about what you're doing. Just let him walk."
That's the tough thing too, because if he's got his own mind, look, he's going to have his own mind and opinions. That might, you know. I mean, we're probably diving deep into hypotheticals here, but you know,
setting the path that vision's put out there.
He might, and I'm not trying to jinx you, but he might have said to you, he might go, "Oh, Dad, what'd you do that for? You fucking."
Well, that's the other side of it. You know, am I disrespecting my son by doing that? And you know, then if I put a label and a target on his back, being the protective dad, and oh man, it just opens up so much more beyond. No, you're not going to do that, boy.
Yeah.
You just can't have that mindset. There's
kids naturally are going to go, "Oh, I can't. Fuck yeah, I'm going to go this
way." Well,
way.
Exactly. And I mean, look, I know a lot of parents these days.
It's almost like you have to celebrate. You almost go, "Oh, I've been dying for this day." Oh, thank God one of you boys have done this. And then he's go, "Oh, it's not that cool anymore."
3 out of 4 ain't bad. You know, like 1 out of 4 ain't bad. Like it's just.
Call us bluff.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And I really, and I think it's going to be a very tough day if that were to ever incur. I think the biggest thing is for me is to keep them active. Like my children have been, like I fought Muay Thai for over 20 years. I've trained most of my life. The thing is, my children do the same thing. Yeah. They still train twice a week. My son, twice a week Muay Thai, twice a week rugby league. He's out surfing. They are actively involved in some sort of activity that has positive results at the end of it, that they feel good about, around like-minded people.
Yeah.
Then look, I grew up in the housing commission in the western suburbs of Sydney. I grew up on the streets. My mentality was a product of my environment. They're not brought into that environment, and they know that if I found out they were knocking around, at young ages with kids that are troubled, I'd be more inclined to want to help those kids and find out why that they're like that and why my children have taken a liking to them, rather than just go, "Oh, no, they're shit." You can't. It's not the kid's fault. At that age, it's not their fault. It's our faults.
Yeah, exactly.
And the parent needs to take ownership of that.
You can identify that kid and go, "Well, he's like that for a reason." So
I do mentoring.
To the bottom of that, yeah.
I do mentoring with troubled youth through 2 projects, which is Project Booyah. And there was another one that was run by the Queensland government. And, I get so much enjoyment out of walking into one of their 12-week programs. And the RISE program's probably the best one I've done in the last few years. And, like Gary, the bloke that runs it's an absolute legend. And, mate, they work very hard to try and break this cycle. I'll come in, they'll see a snippet of my story on SBS or wherever the doco is that they pull it from. They'll sit down, and then the next day they'll come in and I'll come in. And we walk in there, and it's always the alphas, the SJ lads, and he's smoking his ciggy, he's got his TNs on, he's got his Nautica shirt on, and I'm a fucking sick, aren't you? Kicking and shoving and pushing the other blokes. And little Johnny's sitting over there, he's just full of anxiety, and I walk in and scan the room. It's no different to being somewhere else, the way I've lived my life, Yeah. Back to the wall, and I'm looking around, and I know exactly who's who and where and what. We get into a group, And I start to understand by just talking to them, their body language, and then break them down. In the end, I get them all on an even playing field. They're no bigger or better than each other. They're all going through trauma and tough times. Some of these kids, mate, mum's a prostitute on the pipe. They've got siblings. This kid's getting them up, changing their nappies, showering, washing, feed them. Mate, it breaks my heart. And I mean, it's hard to do these programs because you can't help but get emotionally connected to some of these stories.
It's almost like going to the Animal Welfare League.
So much so.
Every time you see just something, you
just want to pick it up and hold it.
Pick it up and help it.
And you go, you poor thing, you know. Yeah. And these young men are no different. But the success rate that Gary's having through the RISE program is huge. And I have been honoured, I think it's been nearly 4 years now with that. Prior to that was when I first got to jail with Project Booyah, run by the Queensland Government and the Queensland Police. And it was all about trying to help these guys make a better choice. The reward at the end, when you see them all in a circle, arms around each other, and I try to bring that morale in at the end of it, man, they're all in tears. So they go from this, tough alpha little punks, walking around kicking each other, pushing and sucking on his ciggy and, talking his fucking cursor talk and whatever the shit talk that they fucking talk.
You can't understand anyway.
To going, hey, bro, man, I got you.
Yeah.
With a tear running down their cheek, realising that each of them are all wanting the same thing. They just want to be loved. They just want to be heard. And, they don't want to live. They don't want to have to go through.
Isn't it crazy to think that you can go into an environment with troubled youth and do that and hopefully steer them in that direction of doing good and everything like that, but a gang can do the same thing.
Without doubt.
And accept them. And you can almost see, like without going back into it again,
you
can almost see how gang members are absorbed because of the weakness too. They can go, well, we know this person. And intentions might be really good. And I don't want to go into intentions of anything like that, but you can see how it's almost like they're on a tip of a mountain, and they could just fall either way. It could go either way, and you just don't know which way. Are they going to go to success? Are they going to go to crime? Are they going to go to brotherhood? Are they going to go to start beating their family just because of the beatings they got? The thing is,
and that's exactly, handing it back down generation after generation. You got to remember, a lot of these kids don't get the opportunity to break the cycle. I mean, I was a kid originally from a housing commission environment, was an Indigenous community. I was a white kid in a black. Aboriginal, Indigenous, black, white. I don't care. There's racism here, so take that for what it is. I'm not being racist by using the word black. Okay, so let's just get that clear. I was a white kid growing up in an Indigenous community, so I know what racism's all about.
Yeah,
I didn't have the choices. Today, the choices are there. There's plenty of help. We didn't have help. My breakaway from that environment and continuing to bring my next generation into that housing commission sort of low living. There's so many good people there that aren't there by choice. It's circumstantial, but there's people that are just, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And they don't get off the bus. You know what I mean? And the next kids and the kids and the kids, and it's just a product that keeps revolving. You've got to give them option. So these kids, through this wonderful program that Gary does, the RISE program, it's about rising up. It is about knowing that you can step away. You don't have to feel that is going to be your life, that your way. You've got choices. Well,
because when you're in the bubble, aren't you?
Absolutely.
You only just pretty much know your suburb and what you see on TV, and even more so back when you were there, because there's no such thing as, there was TV. You had TV back then. But you know what I mean? But back then,
I used to like Monkey. Yeah. Monkey Magic. Whoosh.
That's it. But there's no internet. You didn't see the glorification of it all. So what you had was your bubble.
Well, that was it. I mean, be 10 kids in one kid's bedroom that had a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
But
you didn't
somehow the old boy must have knocked it off from somewhere, and the whole street would go and hang out at their house.
Yeah, well, that's it. But you didn't know about like success stories. You didn't know about anything like that. So what you had was, I hold a lot of faith in today, and that people can sort of absorb a lot of material that can show that it's different, like what you're providing. You can sit here and say that this never existed when you were a young fella. You couldn't go, oh, look, there's a bloke speaking about the way things were, and that could be potentially me in 30 years' time.
The thing is, too, Jono, you never really wanted to talk about your true feelings. You never wanted to really open up about what was going on, because you you were different. So then, you'd be isolated. You wouldn't get invited to your buddy's house because all of a sudden your parents are separated or there's trouble in your home. Can't trust that kid.
Yeah.
That kid's going to steal. That kid's not honest. That kid's going to lie. I don't want my kid around that kid.
Mm.
And that's wrong. But that's a really tough lesson that unfortunately kids go through. I had to go through it because I didn't have the family environment. I mean, I had literally Tommy Radonicus send me a letter. I could have played in the ARL. I was a great footballer. And I played right up here with Seagulls and Tugan, and I love my rugby league. But I had all the talent, but I had no stability.
Yeah.
So I'd turn up to training and I'd be, especially as a young 15-year-old, and here's this damaged kid turning up, trying to chase a dream, and all the kids are turning up, mum and dad's dropping them off, watch them at training. I'd pretend I got dropped off, and then I'd sit around when everyone had left in the dark, freezing cold and fucking winter, wait till everyone had gone to then walk off and walk a very lonely walk back to where I was living in a shack or a street or on sleeping in an oval. Mate, it was hard. Then when the coach can't contact your parents and have a chat and, talk about things that they need to discuss with your guardians, people start to ask questions. Next minute they find out I'm in foster care and I'm running away from foster care. I've been taken out of school. I was an abused child. They didn't want to know about me. Talent was not worth it. It was too much with the talent that they would have had to deal with. Whereas today, if you knew that a young person wanted to excel in something and you could help and guide, there's structure there and people that can assist to help today.
Yeah.
Which will enable you to get that opportunity and not to feel worthless and to feel that you have to turn your back and just go, fuck society. I'm going to go and be anti-everything because they've let me down.
I guess if you're getting told it often, like, oh, he's no good, he's trouble, you think, well, fuck yeah, we'll be trouble.
Well, it is.
Watch me go. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, how many times can you be told you can't go to a kid's birthday party because your parents are split up? You can't invite him. And it happened to me, mate. Like, I was this kid just wanting to be accepted as a young person, 12, 13. I was playing footy with all these boys and I was playing great young football. I was making junior rep teams as far as it went. But whenever it came down to Jono's birthday or Davey's birthday or they were going to have a do where they just swam around the parents' pool at your place, things that kids do when they catch up.
Yeah.
I was never invited. Never.
Slippery slope, eh?
Yeah, bro.
Slippery slope.
And it really, it hurts now talking about it because
I think it hurts now as well.
It's painful,
It would have hurt you, but also you would probably, and I know this with my kids, like when you think about something you missed out on, think about something that hurt you as a child, you automatically, I automatically think of my kids having to suffer that, and that's what makes me more upset than how I actually felt at the time. It makes me more upset to feel like to know how they would be feeling.
My daughter just recently got bullied at school, and she's vision impaired, so she's 13, but she can't run around active like a lot of the kids do because of her vision movement. So she doesn't wear glasses, does she? She can't, no. So she
not track or
she has no null point, and she can only see to a certain distance. Okay, so her eyes spin 24/7. She was born with congenital motor nystagmus syndrome. So she won't ever drive a car and do a lot of things that a lot of teenagers are experiencing now. She's extremely arty and very, very good with her singing, which is something we've spent many years investing in coach-wise and sharing something that she's passionate about.
Harnessing it.
To give her something to. And her high school that she goes to today accepted her in, not only just on her good skills and merit, but she got academically accepted, but she got a bit of a scholarship.
Cool, yeah, awesome.
Through her music. But, she comes home and she she hates being treated different. But there's a particular bench that she sits on and she's got 2 or 3 little girlfriends and that's it, because she's not out there playing sports, running around at lunch, socialising. It just doesn't work for her. And then you've got these crew of girls that come up and they step on their lunch bags, on their backpacks, which have got their phones in it and stuff like that, and crack their lunch boxes and bully and abuse. And that hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Because I come home and I think, and she's been doing Muay Thai for the last 2.5 years, and mate, her confidence is through the roof. God love her, she'd kick you and you wouldn't feel it.
Yeah.
But her technique is better than anyone I know. And she is unbelievably gifted in what she's able to do if shown. But she got up and defended herself, and she doesn't like conflict, and she does need to be considerate because she can't see fast movement, and she wouldn't see somebody if they blindsided her. She could end up, hit her head, she could be dead instantly.
Yeah, yeah.
She's like a size of a year 3 student in year 7. So petite and tiny. And my blood boils because I think, man, I was bullied when I was a kid because I was the kid that was different. You know, I didn't have a big brother. I didn't have mum and dad to come down and defend me at the school. I was just shit. You know, I come from a shit family. I was just a shit kid. And I'm thinking, you can't treat her like this because she's different.
Yeah.
It's not okay. You know, and her little girlfriend was traveling, and I'm not going to mention her, but anyway, she's her sexuality is she's gay. Not that my daughter is, but my daughter's good friends with her. Like, so the 3 girls have all got something different. The other girl's a lovely girl, but she's a bigger girl. Do you know what I mean? They're 3 different young ladies that have come together to build a little bit of morale and strength.
You can see how they would be considered like...
They're outsiders, mate.
Yeah, yeah. And you know that from your primary school, don't you? The kids
You
that
do.
sort of just... They've got their own quirkiness about them.
What the fuck is up with that shit? You got a whole 1,000, 2,000 kids to go and pick on, and you want to pick on 3 little girls sitting on a little bench.
Well, that's insecurity on them.
You know, like,
that's the kids' insecurity.
And
they
as
don't
a dad,
know. Oh, fuck.
you fucking my baby.
Oh, mate, thank you.
You know, like, and this is, but this, then we go into the reality of it all. The reality of it all is this: you and I can't go onto that premises. You and I can't go and sit down with our children at lunchtime and let everyone know that we're dad.
Yeah.
And you know, they need to, and I mean, my daughter and I guess your children need to learn to stand on their own 2 feet, because if we intervene too much at this time, especially as young teenagers, and it's not going to build character and strength for them.
That's spot on.
Especially my daughter with living with a disability. She needs to be strong. So I've got to look at it from that point of view, and fuck, man, my heart just goes.
It's tough because you almost want to. I've just said to my wife, I said, well, what I'll do, I'll just find out what kid it is, and I'll just find where their father is.
Well, that's what I said. I'm just going to knock the father out.
I said, that's cool. Like, he's obviously going to have to suffer for what his daughter's done.
Exactly.
I'm happy to suffer what my daughter do, but unfortunately, mate, that's just what's going to happen.
That's right.
And we'll sort it out that way. But you can't. You're like, oh, trust me,
can't.
I've had many thoughts of this.
It's hard, eh?
It's not character building is where you're spot on, because if you wrap your kids up in cotton wool, especially kids who have something that they can be used as a vulnerability,
yes,
you're really only damaging them more.
And I think today too, John, the way that the world is in society, it's different to when you and I went to school. Yeah, we had bullies.
Yeah.
But your bully got put in its place.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you probably did get up and punch on more back then than what you do today. But we never had phones, cameras. It was always right back at the school, after school, out the bus bay, down the bush.
Film day, yeah. What happened?
Nah, man. And, you know, you'd turn up and there'd be a massive big circle and you'd come into the middle of it. And, you know, if it wasn't one of the boys and you got up over it, well, sometimes, I mean, I remember I'd be getting there and I'd be on top next to, I'd have 4 or 5 boots in the head from all these other people because you're getting on top of their buddy. And so you got shit going.
Slay the land, though.
But that was just how it went. You never went and told on anyone. You just copped your fucking flogging because you had to go back to school the next day.
Yeah.
But if you stood up for yourself, rarely would they come back and do it again. And if they did, well, you just put your hands up and have another crack, and they'd pretty well stop then.
There was never a second round, was there? Like most of the time, when they sorted out, it was sorted out. There was,
and I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I actually, as a father, I'll probably get judged for this one, but I don't think that's a bad thing because it sort of sorted the pecking order out, and like everything in life, you knew where you stood.
I would rather a bit of bullying. I wouldn't rather bullying. What am I trying to
ball's
say?
in your court.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so here's what I'd rather. I'd rather, if I had a son, I'd rather him getting punching on at school than him having to suffer like online stuff. Like him coming home, checking his Facebook and having all these bad comments. I'd rather that he just went and dealt with it there because that is the stuff that makes me super nervous.
And that's just not okay.
That's scary shit.
And our suicide rate in young people, predominantly through bullying, is just through the roof. I mean, coverts just send it up like 30% or 40% again. But, you know, the young people of today...
Because they can be piss weak. They can speak with their thumbs. They got 2 thumbs.
Words are powerful. And, like, I'm not going to sit here and preach that I had the devil's tongue. especially in relationships or, heated moments. Far out, bro. I might unleash, man, and it'd be like Satan's just gone, blah, you know. But they were powerful words that hurt people. My wife will tell me, like, don't you remember back 15 years ago where you said blah, 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 blah? Like, that was really nasty. Yeah, you know what? You're right.
Well, hurt people hurt people. That's the trouble, and that's what's hard to get across to children, especially. Like I try and say that to my daughter. I'm like, be the good person at all times, because very rarely, like if she's obviously dealt with, she's only 10, but she's dealt with, my youngest daughter's dealt with kids that are tricky to deal with at school, And I said, just always be the good person. I said, because that group, that popular group that you're going to try and be a part of because you might be mean to another kid, you don't feel good about that. But I'll tell you what, they never, when the good person disappears, they go, I wonder what happened to so-and-so, the good person. They don't go, oh no, she's got, like, but being notorious for being just a good person is far more beneficial in the long run. But kids can't see the long run. Kids can't see it. It
absolutely is. I mean, look, my young fella, he's 10. But he's been training Muay Thai since he was 4. He's now had 4 fights.
Yeah.
He's fought for a title. He's been training. He's 10 turning 11. He plays rugby league. He's a very strong, fit young man, which he knows the rules. He knows you pick someone up before you put them down.
Yeah.
And if you can help somebody and you can sit down and listen to somebody, and my children have had the blessing, and I call it a blessing because I've lived with mental illness. So they've had to watch their dad fight this illness. And it's not always been good. I've been times where I'm just curled up in a ball. In the past, I don't want to do anything. I'm depressed. I'm manic. I just go, erratic and take everything to extreme levels. They've had to witness that. So I've had to owe them an explanation to what that is all about.
Yeah.
Today's great.
Yeah.
So they're aware when somebody's down. They know what signs to look for. And it's been a beautiful thing that I've been now able to sit back and go, I'm glad that I've been able to openly speak to my kids and share things with them, because they'll come home and say, Dad, there was little Johnny in the playground and no one was playing with him, and he looked really down. So I went up and just sat with him and I said, do you want to kick a ball or pass a footy? And my heart just goes full of just the most enormous amount of love. And I think if that's what my children are taking away from me, then I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know what? They're going to be okay. And if they can live their life in that manner and always know that there's somebody else that, may need a hand, I've got no doubt if they're pushed, they can defend themselves and they know what limits that they can go to before they will get in some big trouble. But I also know too that they would rather not have conflict, whereas I used to thrive on the conflict. I love the energy of the more blood I seen, the more excited I got.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Not for 10-year-olds.
No. But I mean, that was me back then, because of such the pain and the anger and the suffering, it was like a release. Like, I'm winning. You're not going to hurt me,
Well, you should be, at the end of the day, you should be proud that, it can go 2 ways, isn't it? You can be an example, you can be an example of how not to be, and that's just almost just as powerful as how to be, if you move forward in that direction too, I think so.
I think example, positive leadership, having good morale and just, having a good structure is the best way. If we lose sight of that, then we're going to have big problems.
Big problems. 2020's been red hot, mate, so that's good. Yeah.
What was it?
Red hot, 2020.
Who's 2020?
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't. 2020 and I don't exist.
It's Christmas in 4 months.
Yep, and 2021's looking bright.
Well, look, mate, I wish you all the best with the Clink coming up. I'll be tuning in because obviously we can go deep, probably do a few more hours on this, but you got a unique perspective, which I think is going to be really beneficial for you, because I bet if I hit up those blokes you're talking to, they'll tell me where to go. So.
Oh, look, I really am grateful. Thank you very much, and I'm glad that we finally got to sit down and have some table talk with Smoko, because, it's a great thing that you're doing, and, it's unreal to be able to sit down with other hosts and have these chats, and I wouldn't mind getting you on mine just to pull you apart, because I reckon you got a bit of a story there too, right?
I'm busy that day.
Thank you for having me.
One day, mate. All the best, eh?
Cheers, brother.